Good afternoon or good evening for you, those of you back home in the UK or in Ireland. This is the IRN-CRU, and this is our divisional preview of the AFC West. Will it be the AFC Best as it used to be, or are we still looking at it as the AFC North being the AFC Worth? It's really bad wordplay there, but that's all I've got for my intro. Anywho, we're going to be getting into things here. So coming at us in the panel today, we have our resident chief, the man of the squeaky chair, although it seems to be oiled and well lubed. I don't know if you're lubricated as well, Studs, but Mr. Studs,
how you doing? Yeah, I'm all good. Not quite as lubricated as I was for the draft we did last night. A wee bit of draft regret when I look back. I maybe had one too many whiskies when we were doing that.
To be fair though, as much as I was panning your team yesterday, I looked back at it and I was like, you know what, maybe it's not as bad as I was making out to be. Because I was also coming back from a charity golf tournament yesterday and I was sitting in the car next to Pamela, so I think maybe one or too many free wines, and I thought it was a good idea to draft T. Higgins in the fourth round. Although that was I was shocked at Joe Burrow getting sniped from me one pick earlier, because I was sitting going, he'll be my quarterback, this will be fine. And I kind of get ran down by the clock. But yeah, anyway, good to see you here again. Next up, we've got Lee Wakefield, who's from Leeds down in England, possibly a fan of Tony Yeboah. Never got into that with him before this all started, but he's a writer for Touchdown NFL and a fan of the Los Angeles Chargers. How you doing, Lee?
Very good, guys. Thanks for having me. I feel a little bit of odd one out here. The only one who's not of Celtic descent out of all the panel today. So yeah, thanks for having me. And let's talk some AFC West football, some Chargers football. Don't know how positive I'll be about the Chargers' chances, but yeah, we'll have a good chat nonetheless.
Good stuff. Thanks, Lee. Next up, we've got Colm. So he's from the Irish NFL show and the Dublin to Denver podcast. And he has a fan for his sins. You can probably see everything hanging up in the background behind him and also the shirt he's wearing. He is a Broncos fan. How you doing, Colin?
I'm good. Yeah, indeed, for my sins. Although what I will say is Adam Schefter kind of pointed out when Jordan Love signed that contract recently that the Packers have had 32 years of incredible QB play. And that's very true. They have had 32 years of incredible QB play. The Broncos have more Super Bowl trophies in that time, though. So, swings and roundabouts, and you can put up with the misery when you get a Lombardi every now and again.
No, for sure. Colm, as well, I think. So I live in Edmonton in Canada, and I think for a long time there was an ex-Edmonton Elk or Eskimo, as it would have been for a while. I think he was a co-owner of the Broncos, although he may have sold up a little while ago.
Well, yeah, no, Pat Bolan is the man, Mr. B, as he's known in Broncos country and amongst Broncos fans. He got into the Pro Football Hall of Fame not that long ago, but he was revered amongst Broncos fans for the way in which he ran the team. The team never had back-to-back losing seasons under his ownership, which is a testament, I suppose, to the standards that he held the team to. And it was after he got Alzheimer's and sadly passed away, the team really kind of went into the wilderness where they have been for quite some time. Though this might be the most optimistic I've been in a little while. We'll delve into. There are asterisks to put to that, but definitely I think things are probably a little bit rosier than they have been, even with that history setting cap hit that we're taking this year.
Yep, no, all good, Colin. And then finally, last but not least, Mr. David Mackay. So he actually plays flag for the absolutely fantastically named Murray Distillers.
Yeah.
How you doing, Dave?
Pardon?
How you doing?
Yeah, good. Sorry. I was bowled over by you praising our flag team just for the name, which we don't get very often. Yeah, it's going good. Yeah, really excited to talk Raiders today after the quarterback decision yesterday, which has it's been quite a polarizing decision. So eager to hear what you all think about it.
No, good stuff. I actually got to break that news to a guy that was kind of rolling through our wine handoff station at the golf course yesterday. He was wearing a Raiders hat. And got to tell him that, Mr. Minshew had been named starting QB, and he was absolutely delighted. And he proceeded to we have a celebratory cheers. So he's all Minshew mania. Apparently, he even had a mustache. So I was kind of like, okay, this guy's clearly into it, and he was. So
he didn't just rip off his hat and go, "Well, that's it. Season's over. Season's over."
Oh no, he was delighted, and he then thought, he was like, "Watch this!" Like, he felt like he was going to nail the hole-in-one contest that we're doing at our hole, but unfortunately, he did not. His arm strength was such that he launched his drive straight out the back of the green. And so, unfortunately, no hole-in-one and no $20,000 to Adam. So, Adam, if you're listening, great meeting you yesterday, and I'm glad that you're excited about your Raiders and the new season.
Well, I'm hoping at least one thing's going to go well from him from that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, like on that note, let's get into it. So we're gonna do things. We'll start off. I don't really want to start it this way, but I figured, you know what? Let's just get them out of the way first. We've heard, everybody hears about this team all the time. I hear about them now from my 9-year-old daughter who has suddenly decided she's interested in football. She's the biggest Swiftie in the world. So, you can probably guess where I'm going with this. So the first team we're going to go to are the current champions, and were divisional champions last year as well, the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's roll over to Stud.
Yeah, well, can I start? I suppose we'll start for last season. So it was all about, and I even put on my jewellery just to kind of join in tonight. So not quite as expensive as what the guys got, but it was all about the ring last year. So off the back of probably some average offense, to be honest, and that's probably been generous. Outside the Pacheco, I don't really think our offense really fired last year. It was all on the back of the defence and how strong they were for the most part last season. But the big question mark last year was going to be, could we go on the road and win playoff games? I think quite obviously they proved that. They went into Buffalo, took care of the Bills in the playoffs again, and then took care of the Ravens, and kind of snowballed on for there. So all in all, I think it's a successful season last year. It'd be kind of way to start.
You won the Super Bowl again, so that's like two in a row there. So that's, I don't think you can see that as anything other than a successful year. And so that means this year you're looking at trying to head for the three-peat.
Yeah, going for the three-peat, and as Gav so kindly shared with us in our group chat earlier, obviously we know no NFL team's done it, but he shared with us some of the teams in US sports that have done it. I think some of the ones that kind of spring to mind were the Yankees, I think the Oakland A's, and from the baseball side, I think the Lakers done it, splitting between Minnesota and LA and things like that. So I'll be interested to see if we can certainly be the first Super Bowl window NFL team to do it, because I know there was obviously the Packers and the Browns, as he did also share with us pre-Super Bowl era. So we'll be interested to see if we can get that three-peat in.
Yeah, so I mean, on that though, like I guess looking at your team, like how are you feeling about it? Because you had a one very large, notable outgoing, who was a very large part of your team last year, and well for years actually, kind of thing. But especially last year, had some great plays in the playoffs. Mr. Snead is gone.
I think that was the kind of big one. We were obviously not going to pay him, which is why we kind of put the franchise tag on him and then traded him to the Titans for their 2025 third and a 2024 seventh. So he's probably the most notable loss, I would say. One of the maybe more underrated guys that we lost is probably Willie Gay, who joined the New Orleans Saints. I think he kind of stepped up a lot last year, especially in kind of third down plays for the linebacker spot. So I think he could be somebody that we could certainly miss as well. And then also on the DB side, we lost Mike Edwards as well to the Bills. And then one of the other losses was obviously a guy who's probably more like a kind of cult figure, and I'm going to purely doing this just for you, Stu, because he's a punter. So similar to the kicker, but we lost Tommy Townsend, and he was always good value at the parades and stuff like that. But it does have an absolute cannon on him.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, you know me, it's like I like my kind of special teams players sometimes, and again, speaking from Bengals experience, I would say that having a good punter is completely key, because if we look at what happened with us versus yourselves in the last championship game we made it to a couple of years ago, like one of my key takeaways from it was the fact that our punting wasn't quite up to snuff. It really hurt us. Like, obviously Chiefs were great as well. Can't take nothing away from the victory. We spoke about this many times over the last 2 years, but punter for me is an important position. So how are you feeling about your punting through the preseason so far in camp?
I think we picked up Matt Ariza, and he's he came in with a bit of a reputation of having a cannon himself. Obviously had his off the field issues that he had to kind of get resolved, which is why Buffalo released him. But I think he's looked good. So I think I'm pretty comfortable, obviously, losing Townsend and replacing him with Ariza based on what I've seen in the preseason games. For that perspective, from the free agency side, I mean, the one big noticeable pickup we've kind of made, apart from obviously Carson Wentz, is Hollywood Brown, who unfortunately has got injured in the first preseason game. So one of the guys we lost is MVS as well, who also joined the Bills. So getting Hollywood Brown in, who again showed flashes at the Ravens, probably not so much at the Cardinals, but he is known for having that speed. So it's certainly a weapon for Mahomes to kind of use once he's fit.
That's the one thing I would say is that you have added quite a lot of speed at receiver, like whether it's Hollywood Brown or Nicole Hardman, obviously being back as well. But let's just get to, again, speaking of the Bills, because you kind of swapped picks with them, and then you walked in there and took someone that looks, at least from what I've seen so far in the highlights, kind of through camp and through the first couple of games of pre-season, looks like he could be open quite a lot just through his sheer speed. Like, whether he has the hands or not, that remains to be seen, but he's been looking good so far. So, maybe the doubters can calm down a little bit. But of course, I'm speaking of Mr. Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, I think we've definitely got the Bills to kind of thank on that front as well, because they're obviously doing the trade with us. I think Worthy's kind of coming in. It's obviously his weight's probably does look very, very lightweight, and compared to other receivers. So I think that's going to be the concern. Again, camp videos, I think you can try and take with a pinch of salt, because I think you can make anybody look good in what we're going to see on X or Instagram and stuff like that. But certainly looking at Saturday there, when Mahomes was on the field with him, it looked like he was trying to kind of get the ball to him, trying to build that relationship with him in a game. So that was obviously promising. There was one, I think I shared it on our chat, there was one sort of 39-yard ball down the sideline to Worthy, which was an absolute peach for Mahomes. So it's good, obviously going to be good for them to kind of build up those relationships in an actual game practice rather than just at camp. So excited to see how it looks.
No, good stuff. I mean, so I guess like on that for the year, it sounds like everything's kind of fairly positive. The defence though is my one thing for you. Like, how do you feel you're going to cope with Snead and that being out? What's the game plan there essentially? Yeah,
I think we've got a habit of kind of picking up late round DBs in the draft, and Veach and Andy Reid and the other coaches have all been very good at it. So we picked up a six rounder, Kamal Haddon, who I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about. The one that I've seen a lot more of was actually our 4th round safety pick in Jaden Hicks, who some of the hits that he was laying on for the college tapes that I've seen are just monstrous. So I'm hoping that these guys will maybe see a bit more of them in the season. The big one for me that's going to need to step up even more, so I think he stepped up again last year, is going to be our 1st round draft pick a few years ago, Trent McDuffie. I think he's really going to need to step into that Snead role. He's probably going to be the guy that's sitting on the number 1 wide receiver when we're coming up against him, so he's really going to have to step his game up. And we've still got the old head in there of Justin Reid as well, who'll be talking these guys through the games. And again, I think he kind of stepped up again last year. So I think, again, we said that a lot at the start of last year, and Spags we trust. He just seems to have a knack of building a good defence. I'm not too worried about what's happening maybe the first month of the season, because Spags' defences always seem to get stronger as the season goes on for me.
No, that's fair. Like, I mean, I guess like speaking from my side as a Bengals fan as well, we have Lou and also have similar levels of trust there. I will say that based on what happened with us last year, we let too many pieces go, and the fact that, you know, obviously Sneed's gone, but I mean, most of your pieces, you've still got like a lot of the vets there who know the system and can help coach those younger guys up. I mean, even some of the younger guys have been there for at least a year already, so they've been working in the system, whether they've been starting or not. So,
yeah, I think one of the kind of underrated re-signings for us was Mike Dana, and I think he really kind of stepped up to the front in the Super Bowl run. We've seen a lot more of him in the rotation in those games, whether it was through guys being banged up or whatever. But I think he really stepped up in that, and he was rewarded by re-signing a new contract. So I was glad to see him re-signing, because I think it could be a useful rotational piece for us.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so I think you're pretty well set up to do quite well again this year, as you know, by all intents and purposes. We'll get into the other teams in the division pretty much right away here, but just thinking about your schedule though, like taking a look down that, what's your main game this year? Like, what one are you circling in red ink and saying this is the game that's the must watch for everybody this year? And why is it week 2 against the Bengals?
Believe it or not, I actually stayed away from the Bengals one. I'd circled. There was 3 of them that actually jumped out at me right away. Obviously, the obvious one's going to be Flag Day, and it's week 1 at home to the Ravens. We're opening up the new football season on Thursday night football. Arrowhead's going, or Gayhat at Arrowhead, as it's now known, is going to be bouncing. It's a repeat of the championship game. We've not had football or proper football in so long. I think everybody's going to be tuning into that game for one reason or another. So that was kind of the obvious one. The other 2 ones that I found really interesting, and is Buffalo week 11, where we travel up to Buffalo. Again, a repeat of the divisional game, I think. So a repeat of the divisional game up in Buffalo. That'll be a challenge for us. And then the other one is one of the sweethearts for last year is the Houston Texans coming Arrowhead in week 16. Again, very late in the season. If the Texans continue building for last year, they could be one of these contenders that we're seeing. So I think that could be a very interesting game.
Yeah, no, I think, because I mean, even me just scanning down, like the other one, there's another few that kind of stand out to me, but you know, you're playing the Niners in San Francisco week 7 as well, like obviously beating the Super Bowl, and you know that the Niners are going to be looking to make a statement in that game after what happened last year. Like you said, week 1 against the Ravens, that's huge. For me, like one of the teams that's kind of maybe not crept under the radar a bit, but I'm very interested to see how they go now, just based on how much they've improved the defence, and now the fact that they seem to have a quarterback and Kirk Cousins there is the Atlanta Falcons. You're playing them Sunday Night Football. That's week 3 as well. Yeah. So to start the season, you're playing the Ravens, who they've had a few losses on defence as well, but they historically have a very well coached team, same as yourselves. Harbaughs are always good at coaching defence, as again we'll get to later on. You play the Bengals, then you play the Falcons week 3 in Atlanta, and I'm looking at them saying, you know what, that defence could be, you know, pretty spicy this year. So much so that after my wine yesterday, I took them as my team defence in the draft, because it was like Jesse Bates and Simmons, like best safeties in the league. Here we go, locking up Worthy.
We've certainly got a challenging start to the season. There's no denying that. I think starting our first 2 weeks at home, I think could only benefit us, to be honest. So I'm a bit more comfortable in that aspect of it.
Yeah, no, good stuff. But so I guess, like, what's your overall hopes and goals for this year? Yeah. Without giving away your prediction on the record, we'll do that at the end with everybody. But
I think that the obvious one's got to be the 3-peat. Again, making history. Nobody's done it. First back-to-back team in 20 years. Just want to see them go that one step further and get the 3rd one.
Yeah, so I totally understand that. I mean, I will say it's hard to repeat 3 championships in a row. It's like, I watch a lot of hockey out here as well, and in the past few years, we've seen teams either like Tampa Bay, they won 2 finals in a row and then managed to go to the final the next year again and lost out. And it was just basically they had a lot of the same core. That's a lot of hockey, and the same with you guys. Like I know there's a larger break in the NFL, but it's still a lot of football that you've played each year, kind of year over year kind of thing. So it starts to accumulate. So you're maybe looking at guys like Kelsey and that going, well, how much is his body going to be able to take kind of thing. So, but anyway, I think you can't aim at anything less than the three-peat this year. So I totally get you going for it, but might be hard to do, but we'll see.
We'll see how it goes. I think we've got the right people leading the team in Mahomes and Reid for me. So I don't really think you could ask for anything better than those two leading the team to kind of take you into this season.
100%. No, get where you're coming from. Okay, now moving on. We're going on to another team in the West now that we've heard all about the Chiefs. Again, kind of thing. And actually, me mentioning Kelsey there was the only time he even came up in conversation.
But I can't actually believe we just sat and spoke about the Chiefs without mentioning Mahomes round the back plastic Kelsey at the weekend.
Right, exactly. or like me, I love my kickers. We never even mentioned Butker's new contract.
Well, there was that as well. So, but just before we move on, you want to know my crush it and breakout?
No, we're doing that
at the end.
Yeah, we'll do that at the end. We'll do everybody's crush it and break it just after all the teams, along with your prediction on your record for the year. So right now, if you want, you can sit and go through your schedule and add up your wins and losses. And I'm going to move on to talking about the Raiders with David Mackay.
You're a big fan of kickers, are you?
Oh, I love kickers.
We have potentially the two best kickers in the division, and probably in the NFL, and Daniel Carson and AJ Cole. So, I mean, we could talk about Daniel Carson all day long if you want.
Oh, we definitely could. I mean, that's the time. Never mind Minshew mania. Let's just talk kickers. We've not even got to the Chargers. They've got Dicker, the kicker, as well. It's like we actually have a whole. It's the same as the FC North. We've actually got a collection of absolutely fantastic kickers that all the teams. Colm, how are you feeling about the Broncos kicker? Let's just kickers chat now. Let's just get it out of the way.
I wouldn't put Will Lutz any higher than 16 to 18, probably best kicker. I'm not. That's not going to be a strong point of our season.
I mean, Lee, how are you feeling about Dicker? I know he's a guy that I've kind of penciled in as potentially great. If I can't get any of the top kickers, like he's a guy I have in my reserve list as like hold off and wait and grab Dicker.
Oh yeah, he's a top kicker. Yeah, top quarter of the league. I think quite easily. I think, like you say, without the Raiders and the Chiefs, it'd be in a different division. He'd be a kicker that you'd look at as being one of the best in the division. But yeah, it is a really strong division, as you say. But yeah, he's been great in the preseason so far. As much as you don't pay 100% attention to that, but he's been really strong since he came in. So yeah, really, really confident with him. Which, if we go back a few years to Chargers kickers, is a welcome break that we seem to have got from him.
No, excellent. I mean, Colm, I will say in Lutz's, or maybe not in his defence, but in his favour, he is kicking in Denver, Mile High City and all that. So, he should get a little bit more length than he would have in New Orleans in the Super Bowl. So I realise there's maybe a bit more wind, but, kick the ball a bit further. So you never know. Maybe we're getting some 65-yarders or a 70-yarder at some point or something.
Well, he's less drama than our last kicker, which is always welcome. And middle of the pack is fine.
Yeah, it's better than the bottom. But anyway, back to what we're actually meant to be talking about, the Raiders. So let's get into it, David. So I guess, how did you feel about last year? Obviously, up and down, going after the start to the year, it looked great for a couple of games. Then it all went a bit wobbly. And then there was a coaching change.
I don't think it ever looked... Did it look great at the start?
Well, you won a couple of games at the start.
Yeah, it wasn't great. It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad at the start. I don't think it was ever great under McDaniels. I don't think I ever felt. Great. I don't think the fans ever felt great with McDaniels. We were promised the Patriot way when he came in, and I think we all thought and trusted that maybe he'd learn from all the mistakes he'd made at Denver and do it better.
Yeah.
And he was given the keys to the organization, really, with Ziegler coming in as well. and it just never felt great from. And this is partly what is still going on now, is since he axed Derek Carr, and I didn't really have a problem with that as long as there was a plan. There was no plan.
Yeah, there was no plan.
There was no plan.
I mean, I'll say in Derek Carr's defence, like I know a lot of people.
I'm a big fan of Derek Carr. I stick up for him.
By certain like stat measures, like he's a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah,
regardless. Like, people might not think he's the sexiest quarterback, like, but he's not throwing no look behind the back passes to Kelsey. Yeah. But Derek Carr still he's one of those guys that sort of he'll give you enough to win games, kind of thing, and that's all you can really ask from him. So yeah, I was surprised when they moved on from him and didn't really address the quarterback position per se, other than going, let's bring in Jimmy Garoppolo for the Patriot way. And as much as Jimmy G was, he's been good in flashes in his career, we all knew he was quite injury prone, and obviously this all happened.
Yeah, and he was missing games right at the start of last season, and Aidan O'Connell was, before Garoppolo was cut, I think O'Connell had already played 2 games because Garoppolo had been injured. So it was, and we never, we weren't scoring. I think we were winning. I think the two games we won, we scored less than 20 points. We weren't scoring points.
Yeah.
So McDaniel, he had to go, and AP and Antonio Pierce came in, and the whole morale and mentality of the franchise has just completely changed. He's just when he first sat down and that first press conference he did, and it's these are buzzwords, and but they resonate with the Raiders fans. When he starts talking about a will to win, pride and poise, a commitment to excellence. These are all catchphrases, but if you say it in the right way, you'll bring everyone with you. And he cut Garoppolo, benched him, and then our first game against a bad Giants team, we scored 30 points, and then we're rolling after that.
Yeah, because I mean that's the thing, is like it looked like you almost had a shot at the playoffs.
We did. I think.
Because I was looking at going like, what? Maybe they can do it, because it's like Devontae Adams, like he's there. He's still an elite wide receiver in the league. Of course, when Jimmy G was thrown to him, it wasn't working out, but there seemed to be a bit more chemistry, and Myers was looking good. Another expatriate kind of thing from the Patriot way, but quite like to be Myers. Like,
I don't mind the Patriot way if it works, and
of course, he won for years. It's like
So Myers had a great season, because he got so much of the ball because Adams wasn't getting the ball. There's great players in that, especially on the offense, and then at the start of the season under McDaniels, you're looking at like, how can this offense be so bad? So Antonio Pierce came in, and that's something we've done during the offseason as well, was securing him as the permanent head coach, and it was a complete no-brainer, just in the way that even the way that the season ended the way it did, with us missing out in the playoffs, that everyone still felt so good because of the energy he brought to the locker room. Whether it's cigars in the locker room, after wins, if it, the day after McDaniels went to basketball, who got put up in the locker room. These are all, I guess, little things, but it got Pierce to the point where players like Max Crosby are sort of almost publicly asking for a trade if he doesn't get the job.
That's the thing. You got that buy-in, and it's like that's something that's priceless, kind of thing. Like players who believe in a coach and go like, what, this guy's got our back, so we've got his back. But I guess
and with Pierce, it's trust and respect. He trusts the players to to make the best decisions on the field. He respects them to make decisions during the week, about, he trusted them to make decisions about travel and preparation for games, the way they wanted to do it. And then, he'll get that buy-in back from them.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. But I guess, like, looking at your roster, though, and you're saying they're on an offensive side, like offensive players and that, like, in terms of, like, outgoings from what you had on the roster, obviously you're looking to build and keep going. Finished 8-9 last year, like, just missing out on the playoffs, just under 500. So
yeah,
still
and that's with the awful start that we had as well.
Yeah, it's exactly, just like coming back from that awful start. Like, one of the big names for me that's gone, and fantasy stalwart, Josh Jacobs. He's obviously off to Green Bay now. Who else, like, besides him, would you say has been a big loss, or who are your biggest names out? I think.
Well, I don't think we've lost. I don't think we've lost that much. It's very, obviously Jacobs will be. He's the big one to go, and he wanted. I'm not going to begrudge Josh going. He wanted paid, and he deserves to get paid for the last 2 seasons that he had. He's been playing with a chip on his shoulder for the last 2 years because Darren Waller got paid and he didn't. And we look at what's happened to Darren Waller over the last couple of years. So Josh, he definitely deserves that big contract, but. The Raiders made him an offer. They said, this is what we're going to pay you. This is what we think you're worth. And if they put that value on him and he thinks he's worth more than that and he wants to move, that's fine. But he sat out the last few games of last year, and Zamir White came in, and he pretty much. We were beating up hard on the Chargers and the Broncos at the end of the season, and Zamir White was a big part of that. So, I don't really have any worries about Zamir White stepping up to be the number one running back this year for the Raiders. I think he's got I think it's his 3rd year on the roster. He came in with a lot of promise, and this is his time to to deliver now. And we've signed Mattison, and we've still got Abdullah on the roster as well. So there's a bit of there to pass the ball between them. But I think we've kept all the important parts of the team.
Yeah, you've still got Max, still got Devontae, still got Jacoby Myers. You've obviously brought in as well through the draft, like a guy who I think could possibly be a big player for you this year, and Brock Bowers. If you want to speak about him for a little bit, like obviously, he had. So going into the draft, and we're all wanting that quarterback situation addressed. So going into the draft, there was a big desire to fix that or address that quarterback situation, and also. Defensively as well, I think there was a lot of guys, pushing for a cornerback as well. And then we go down the draft, and I was like, we drafted a tight end. We got one of them last year, Michael Mayers. He's doing a good job, Michael Mayer. What? Why? He's not. That's not one of the problems we need. That's not one of the problems we need fixed. What are we doing? But then you start watching the film of this guy, and you go, this is a real Raider. This is a baller who who's gonna break out, and supposedly in training camp, he's getting played all over the place. He's getting played at tight end. He's getting played at wide out. He's getting played in slots. So he can play. So if he's playing wide out or in slot, then you can still use Mayer as well. You've got Adams. You got. Myers, like that suddenly looks like a really, very dangerous offense. You just got to be able to throw the ball to them. Yeah, no, I mean that's one of the things I liked about the Brock Bowers thing is that, to me, I looked at it and went, well, the guy can basically be your giant slot receiver rather than, or push him outside as well. But I seen him more probably use him as that giant slot type guy, and then Meyer is in there who can also receive, like he's got decent hands and all that too, but he can play that traditional tight end role. And if anything, though, it's one of those positions where it's always a good idea to have depth. I think because they are bigger guys, they play hard football kind of thing. They're getting hit a lot. They're hitting a lot of people too. They're getting asked to do the line work and things as well. So, to me, when I saw you drafting them, I went, you know what? Maybe not completely a position I need, but that was like a best player available.
Yeah.
And the way the quarterbacks were coming off the board as well, it was like, well, if you couldn't get the guy you wanted, go for the best player available instead, and just maybe try and sign someone in free agency, which is who we're getting to now. It's your incoming player, and was just named as your starter. How are you feeling about the man, the myth, the guy that likes to live in a bus, and apparently his bus is parked at the Raiders Stadium car park all the time now, Mr. Gardner Minshew, because he likes to have extra time in the gym when he can get it, so he sleeps in the car park apparently.
I didn't know that. Well, the only thing, I can say, there's a lot of things to say. It's so at the start of training camp, AP was saying, look, I'm waiting for one of these guys to stand up and say, this is my job, I'm taking it, I'm your starter. And then, as the weeks go by, he's talking to the press and he's saying, yeah, nobody's done that yet. Like, no, I'm still waiting for that guy to stand up and say, I'm your guy. And then eventually he said, I'm going to name my starting quarterback after the Cowboys preseason game. And then, both of them didn't really have good games against the Cowboys at the weekend. So you're still sitting there going, well, like, who's he going to pick? And I think the popular sort of feeling was drifting towards O'Connell because he was the guy that finished last season so strongly. It's it's almost his job to lose. But then Minshew's been brought in. You don't bring in a guy like Gardner Minshew when O'Connell's your starter to be the backup. You're bringing in Gardner Minshew to be the guy. You don't. He's a very expensive backup to Aidan O'Connell. So it was almost like he was being brought in to be the guy. Just AP wanted to be convinced he was the guy, and it doesn't sound like he's really.
Yeah, he's not. He's not set the heather on fire.
No,
is what you're saying so far.
Yeah, the upside to Minshew is that he's got upside, and maybe O'Connell is seen as the more conservative choice. Maybe, he's a safer pair of hands. But what is sort of through training camp and the preseason games, he's not really shown that he's any safer a pair of hands than Minshew, and Minshew's got that upside of deep plays that O'Connell doesn't really have. So, and he's got and what AP said as well was it was the experience of Minshew. He's been around the league a bit more. I think the coaches were talking about he's better at taking in that information quickly. And he also did a thing before the game against the Cowboys at the weekend. He did a bit of a pep talk to all the guys before that everyone seemed to buy into. And O'Connell, I don't want to say he's a shy guy, because you don't be a quarterback in the NFL being a shy guy, but he's a lot more of a humble guy than Minshew, who's more of a character. And this is the Raiders, and we like our characters. He's got a bristling black mustache. He
has the whole backstory of the getting an extra red shirt year because he decided, you know what, the only way I'm getting this is injury. I'm going to take a hammer and break my hand with it, and sat like having swigs of whiskey and hitting his hand again and again with a hammer until he knew it was broken. And it was that thing of, how much do I love football? The only way I'm going to make it is if I get another year of thing in college. So I need to maximize my college time here. So I'm going to break my hand. That's how much I love football. So that is very Raiders.
Yeah, he's look. If he's got, I think he's got the upside. That O'Connell maybe doesn't have. It's just, is he going to turn the ball over?
Yeah. And that is the danger with Minshew. He'll be excited.
But O'Connell's been doing that in training and preseason too. So there's nobody looks like the safer bet. So Minshew's got the deep threat. So and he's more mobile than O'Connell as well. So he's been brought in to be he is the experienced guy. So, we'll roll with him at the start. But I don't think he's got the job locked down yet.
Yeah. It could be a couple of games in and then he maybe gets dropped. But so speaking of schedule, same question I asked Studs as well. Like, which game are you most looking forward to this season, or what do you think your biggest one is? I see. Oh, you actually play us as well in Cincinnati, but I guess it's not the Bengals.
Yeah, two. We've got so opening week, we've got a home game against the Chargers in LA, and then so that would be a good. A lot of guys wanted Harbaugh, coming in as coach as well instead of AP, but that'd be an early sort of gauge as to whether we've got that one right or wrong. And then apart from that, it's the Chiefs at Arrowhead. Just it was it felt so good to ruin their Christmas last year. So good. So yeah, let's go. Let's do it again. It's Black Friday this year.
Friday, November 29th. Yeah, week 13.
So it's Black. It is actually our only. Well, I suppose. Yeah, I'm calling it a primetime game. It's the Black Friday game, but it is our only primetime game on the schedule.
Yeah, everything's either. I mean, yeah, because I was about to say, you've got one against the Niners, but no, that's preseason week 3. Nothing's such a last preseason.
Yeah, so
you've got Monday Night Football against the Falcons on December 16th.
Yeah, there's 2 Monday night games that day, so we're not actually on the Monday night game. I don't know why there's 2 that day, but for some reason there's 2.
Interesting. Must be one's on Amazon and one's on something else. It'll be a TV.
Yeah. But I do think as well, like, we should just own Black Friday. Like, we should just play on Black Friday.
On the Raiders Black Friday. Yeah, that's a great idea. Just
teams have Thanksgiving. We'll take Black Friday. That'll be our thing. So yeah, I think that's Chiefs on Black Friday, and it'd be good to Chargers on the opening day, because the Raiders there's still so many Raiders fans in LA, obviously. So we've got 2 games in LA this year against the Chargers. Well, 3, 2 against the Chargers, 1 against the Rams.
Yeah.
So so that those 3 games will be big for us as well.
No, fair. And so, what's your goals for this year? Like, where would you like to find? Don't give us a record or like your prediction on wins and losses, but what's your hopes?
To have the prop, I would like. So last year, nobody was better in the division games than us. So so I would hope that this year we would still keep the best divisional record.
Yeah, so I guess with that, that's maybe leading towards playoffs. Because you're hoping the best divisional record, maybe you're finishing second at least, and maybe in that wildcard spot, or
but it's so up in the air, like if we keep that momentum, and it is, and that thing with AP last year, it was all about momentum, and everyone bought into it, and it's just can he keep that going? Like, just anyone he speaks to, he just yells Raiders at them. Can you keep doing that if things start to get a bit rough? I hope so. Well, I hope if things don't get rough. I hope things go great, and we just go around the country yelling Raiders all the time. That'd be great.
Driving their bus around people's stadiums in celebration.
Yeah, and so if we can start the season well, the two road games to start off with, but then the schedule, there's a few games after that look a bit better. So if we can get maybe split those 2 road games at the start, then we can get a bit of momentum to start the season and maybe push for playoffs. But with Minshew, it could go the other way.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, so going from one wildcard quarterback to another wildcard quarterback who probably isn't going to even be the starter, we're going to head off to the land of the Broncos. We just lost Mr. Let's Ride, Russell Wilson. He's gone to my kind of favourite team to hate, the Pittsburgh Steelers. But you've now replaced him with a draft pick this year, Bo Nix, and then also the wild card that I speak of, Mr. Zach Wilson as well. The much maligned Zach Wilson. But anyway, Colin, it's time to talk Broncos. Let's ride.
Oh, isn't it nice that that's no longer in Denver? And I mean, look, that's the story of the Broncos the past couple of years. Maybe in the fullness of time, we will get the real story about Russell Carrington Wilson, about Nathaniel Hackett, about Aaron Rodgers, and everything that went on there. Like Russ was. It's funny to me, I suppose, how the media works a lot of the times, because I don't think as fans people understand that there are people paid to spin stories on behalf of players and on behalf of teams. Teams have media partners, they have PR people, everything gets spun. I'll give you an example of something with Russell Wilson that wasn't, I suppose, talked about. People talk about The Office and stuff like that. Russell Wilson put a ban on playing Future in the Broncos locker room because of the history that he has. So they could not play Future songs in the locker room. Things got so toxic during that first season that players started deliberately playing Future. It got that antagonistic. And that's just a small example of some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes that people aren't aware of, and who leaks and stuff like that. And we'll get into Sean Payton leaks too, and we'll get into that. But it was an abject disaster. It never worked. And I think the Steelers are about to find out that, Russ can't cook. Russ is cooked. And the person who probably believed in Russell Wilson more than anyone, more than perhaps even Russell Wilson, was Pete Carroll. And Russ is going to owe Pete an apology, because Pete is the one who kept his career going for longer than it probably indeed should have. So that is the story of the Broncos the last couple of years, last year, and the cap hit. Obviously, last year they tried to run it with Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, and it just didn't work. He is everything that Sean Payton doesn't like in a quarterback. He doesn't, stick to the script. That is what Sean Payton wants more than anything, and that's Sean. I mean, you just had two giant egos. I mean, Sean Payton has an enormous ego, but Russell Wilson does too, and they did not fit together. They did not mesh together, and then we had the that Miami game. I mean, difficult, genuinely, when you look at that score, it seems like, something off of Madden. It seems like something you read about, almost from times past. It was like when growing up, watching.
I was going to say, no offense to it, but it's almost like something you see in Brit Ball. Where you have two mismatched teams. Or I was, at the IFAF under-21 tackle tournament recently. They held that here in Edmonton, and if anyone hasn't checked out the summary shows from that, like from a few weeks ago, it's worth a listen. But for instance, you would have games like where Canada would play Brazil and the score was 86 to 9, and stuff like that. And it's a bit like, well, Brazil were trying hard, and I have a lot of respect for them for what they did and how they approached the game. But that's kind of what happened with Miami against the Broncos last year. But
and yet they bounced back and got that crazy turnover look, and they went on the run. They beat some decent teams, I think, in spite of Russell Wilson rather than because of Russell Wilson. And then obviously at the end, it all went wrong. So I think to end with 8 victories, given that the team started 1-5, wasn't bad ultimately. And then this offseason was about moving on and about, I suppose, clearing up the mess. I mean, this is the team that has the largest dead cap in NFL history, that's taken on more than 50 million of that this year. 20% of the cap will be taken up solely.
Hold on, how much are the Browns paying Deshaun Watson again? Because surely that guaranteed money is the largest dead cap in football. I'm sorry.
Well, they may well be come the end of the season, but for right now, the Broncos with 53 million this year and 32 million next, and that obviously limited what the team could do in the off season. But I think getting rid of Russell Wilson and getting rid of Jerry Jeudy is enormously beneficial. I mean, if anyone again watched Judy's behavior over the last 4 years, going all the way back to when he was clearly inebriated, giving interviews at the end of his first season, and then last year with Steve Smith on the sideline, and then he goes to the Browns, and then he says he talks publicly about chasing the bag. So good luck to Cleveland with that one. That is quite something. And
I love to hear it. Don't get me wrong. The fact that he was drafted
for the Bengals, absolutely,
higher than T. Higgins, and in that same year as well. I kind of look as much as T's. We know he's leaving the Bengals at the end of this year, but to be fair to the guy, he signed the tag and he's back for one more year, and clearly it's a contract year for him. So I expect him to be trying quite hard, shall we say, because he's going to want paid next year. But yeah, for Jeudy though, I would agree. I think Denver's probably in a better spot with him going. I'm a big fan of Sutton, I have to say. I've had a lot of shares of him in fantasy the last few years, and just as a PPR guy, because of the volume of receptions he was getting, he's done quite well for me. Thank you for that trade last year, Studs. That was
Cortland's fantastic, and is I suppose his catch radius is absolutely ridiculous, and some of the catches that he made. I mean, you mentioned Tony Yeboah earlier. Remember that month he had a kind of his own kind of goal of the month competition. Cortland Sutton kind of does that with catch of the season, with some of the stuff he pulls off. Going into this year, I suppose the issue is, do the Broncos have the speed? Because obviously you've got Cortland Sutton, you've got Tim Patrick, but do they have the speed is the question I would have, because kind of Marvin Mims has been the invisible man. He hasn't had, he hasn't been with the ones ever the entire time in training camp, and he played one snap of the first 16 yesterday. So I think that is probably something to keep an eye on. But for in terms of the Broncos, who they brought in, really, you mentioned Zach Wilson. We'll see. He may end up as QB2. Really, does it matter whether it's him or Stidham? No, I don't think it particularly does. He's probably the more entertaining in that he'll do something stupid like take a sack and give up a safety in a preseason game, but ultimately if your QB1 is out for any length of time, it's going to be difficult to do anything. And probably Franklin Myers, I think, is an interesting piece, because I think that the Broncos D-line is, if the team is to do kind of anything this year, it is a piece that needs to step up. It is a piece that has underperformed for several years now, so that's probably another piece to look at.
I mean, one again with your players brought in as well. Obviously we mentioned Zach Wilson there, and then you've got Stidham. They're having that battle for QB2. But I know during the draft, people were kind of looking at the Broncos, going they were unlucky. They've maybe picked the worst one of those quarterbacks in the first round. But to me, from what I've seen so far, Bo Nix in pre-season and the snaps he's played, he's done absolutely everything that he's needed to. He's looked comfortable. He's not really put a foot wrong so far. So how are you feeling about Bo Nix? He's not been named starter yet because it's Sean Payton. He's not going to do that. He will wait until the start of the season before saying anything. We know that. But how are you feeling about Bo Nix so far?
Yeah, look, I suppose I think he has looked good. I think what is fascinating to me is, again, the media narrative, okay? After that first preseason game, and everyone was talking about happy feet, Greg Rosenthal went on the Mina Kimes podcast. He said that Sean, he was hearing stories that Bo Nix really wasn't Sean Payton's guy, that ownership might have been involved. I thought that was very interesting, because we've heard He went on with Robert Mays, and they were really unimpressed. Nate Tice was talking about how unimpressed he was with Bo Nix. And then, well, last night happened, and you would think that, you know, Bo Nix had done that in an AFC Championship game. I think put a big asterisk beside it, right?
Yeah, that's when your asterisk is
yeah.
But
And that's what I'm saying about Sean Payton's people in the media. Sean Payton is best friends with Colin Cowherd, right? So when you see Colin Cowherd come out and talk about it, you know where that's coming from. Sean Payton hung out on Colin Cowherd's show for the year that he took off, and then what you see from Colin Cowherd saying that, you'll get stories now in the Denver media saying NFL analyst says Bo Nix will be top young QB this year, and the cycle perpetuates for forever. But I think Nix is, I think I've seen some kind of criticism today kind of pointing to Kenny Pickett last year and how good Kenny Pickett was in preseason. And I think, yeah, I'm always very wary of preseason. Let us not forget that the 0-16 Browns went 4-0 in preseason, right? So preseason is preseason. But what I will say is Kenny Pickett had Matt Canada, and Bo Nix has Sean Payton. And Sean Payton has plenty of flaws. He does, but he is a damn fine play caller. He really is. So I think Nix, I expect him to be good, to be fine and potentially good. He isn't Patrick Mahomes. He isn't Josh Allen. You know, Mahomes is the best in the league, and Allen is, to me, second. I put them right now above it. Can your boy Burrow get back up there? Yes, but he needs to stay healthy. So I don't think he's a threat to those guys, but he'll play in the system. Payton will design the system for him. The speed is the one worry I have, but he is mobile, and there is, I think, you see him talking to the media, and there's an authenticity that was absolutely lacking in Russell Wilson. I mean, Wilson would get to the podium and it was just like a robot, you know, no matter what had happened. And fans tired of it, players tired of it. So I do think that will help. But it will be like the Broncos are going to lean heavy into the RPO game. But that's what you've seen Sean Payton do. He is willing to scheme for his QB. And look, the two are going to go hand in hand. Sean Payton needs this to work because he doesn't want to look like, I mean, Russell Wilson, right before he came to Denver, Hall of Fame trajectory. If it all falls apart, will Russ get in the Hall of Fame? Don't know. Sean Payton, Hall of Fame trajectory. If it all falls apart in Denver, will he make the Hall of Fame? Don't know. But he needs this to work. He needs it to work with Nix. And so I'm not expecting Bo Nix to be a top 10 NFL QB. But if Bo Nix can be above the 20th, if Bo Nix can be the 16th best QB in the league, that's an enormous jump from what the Broncos have had.
Yeah, especially for a rookie as well. If you can do that, that's fantastic. It's a really good.
That'd be sensational. I would expect if Bo Nix could be the 18th or 9th best QB in the league this year, I think that would be an enormous progress. Like you're talking about a franchise, right, that trotted out Trevor Siemian, right, for as the starter for not one
last year, and he wasn't great. I'll put it that way. So
Trevor Siemian would be great to go for a pint with. Trevor Siemian is not an NFL starter, right? But there was Paxton Lynch, and there's been a lot of kind of talk about Broncos fans not being patient, and because there was talk about Josh Allen and Broncos fans would run Josh Allen out of town. Broncos fans have been incredibly patient. Look at some of the guys who have come in. If anything, Broncos fans have been too patient. I mean, this is a fan base that was ready to build a statue to Drew Lock because he had 4 good games at the end of one season and absolutely memory hold that awful game against the Chiefs in the snow. Like the fan base just completely ignored that. Oh, don't mind that. That was an anomaly. Drew Lock is the future. So it to me it is it's quite something. But look, this is what this season is all about. It's the Bo Nix show, and how Nix goes is how the Broncos go.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And I think, I guess like the people he's thrown to in terms of up arrows, like Patrick, he's back, maybe after missing 2 years, he might be back kind of thing. He's looking decent. Your running backs like McLaughlin, Williams, Perrine, I know very well, again, from his time in the Bengals. And he's more of that just straight ahead kind of bowling ball guy. But like, I liked Perrine and I was sad to see him go. I liked him as a third down back. His hands are okay. He has apart from in the Super Bowl. But like you have that stuff there, so they can be an outlet. And Dulcich as well, is he not back from injury? So you have some pieces there that could be good dump off options like for Nix, so he might have the support he needs. So.
Yeah, like does if Greg Dulcich could stay fit, he'd be absolutely fantastic. But there's huge asterisks there. He hasn't been able to do that thus far. So we have seen flashes, but until such time as he can actually make an extended run, I would be skeptical of that. There are nice pieces there. There's an awful. There's kind of the fan base is obviously united around Bo Nix, but there are definitely camps in terms of Perrine and Audric Estime, and who there are some who certainly see Estime taking Perrine's job, and Perrine might maybe being moved, and others who think that Audric Estime isn't explosive enough, and they may jettison him. And the other thing, I like Tim Patrick, absolutely incredible to see him come back. I was concerned. Some talk, that he could be a potential trade candidate, because of who the Broncos have, and whether they look to keep both him and Courtland Sutton and Reynolds, who are all somewhat similar players. They're obviously a little bit different, but somewhat similar. So could he be a guy who, a bit like Alberto, the Broncos he did very well in preseason last year. A lot of people thought he was certainty to make the 53, and then he got traded. So might be something to keep an eye on there.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Schedule, looking for this year, like what are you singling out as being your most looked forward to game of this year?
Oh, there's only one game. That's week 2 when the Pittsburgh Steelers roll into the Mile High City. They were showing highlights of the Steelers game last night at the Packers preseason game, and the crowd erupted when the Russell Wilson sacks were shown. So I can tell you that is what everyone has circled. Will Russell Wilson even be the Steelers starting QB at that point? We don't know, but that's what everyone is looking at. But look, there are kind of revenge games galore. We start with our annual pilgrimage to Seattle at this point, which the Broncos seem to, that seems to be how we're starting the season. There is obviously Sean Payton's return to the Saints. That's something to keep an eye on. And Jerry Jeudy will be back in town as well. So revenge is
as well. That's December 2nd, Monday Night Football as well. The Jeudy show.
Yeah, there is a kind of we've got some, but fortunately, blessedly for me and people on this side of the Atlantic, the Broncos haven't too many primetime games. I think everybody who is a football fan is still scarred from that Broncos Colts game that we were all forced to witness. And I say that as somebody who and Studs will remember this, the Kyle Orton game where the Broncos and the Chiefs played out a 7-3 thriller, which would seem like some sort of Scottish lower division game, but even that was an absolute spectacle in comparison to the Broncos Colts game. But Broncos have been incredible in recent years in their ability to drag teams down to their level and force them to play. You only have to look. I mean, the 49ers were a sensation. They were a buzzsaw at times last year, and the previous season. Not against Denver. Good luck, boys. Couldn't score more than 11.
Fantastic. So yeah, I guess like hopes for the year. What are you hoping for, and what are you expecting?
It's that if Bo Nix looks like being a franchise QB. That I think is what everyone is looking at. And on top of that, then we need to see a pass rush. The Broncos obviously, look, the last Super Bowl win was based off of the defense and a ferocious kind of pass rush. Pat Surtain is there in the backfield, so he, you've got something to lean on, but we need them to rush the passers. Can Nick Benito make the leap? And Jonah Ellis is a player very exciting. He has looked really good in preseason, but it's a caveat, it is only preseason, but my goodness, does he get after the QB. So he might be the one to finally break the double digits in terms of sacks. Those are probably what I'm kind of keeping an eye on, is really kind of the QB and the pass rush.
Nice. Well, I mean, we'll see what happens, and we'll see if you guys can ride on to success, or if it's another ride into despair for Denver and into those cold mountain nights. So moving on from those cold mountain nights to the sunny west, or the left coast, or the west coast, whichever you want to call it. We're heading off to Los Angeles, and we're going to see the Chargers. So Lee, how are you feeling about last year?
I'd rather just forget it. To sum it up in a sentence, if I'm honest with you, obviously the season ended in terrible fashion, both in terms of the results on the field, winning only I think one of the last 6, and that was a 6-0 win over the Patriots in a game that I've already forgotten, which is great. And also, obviously, to much of David's joy, I'm sure the 63-21 loss that saw off Brandon Staley and Tom Telesco. I mean, God help the person or the team who has either of those guys hired next season or from beyond. I'll say that maybe.
Yeah,
with a wry smile towards David as well.
And yeah, it's I don't know how that. I don't get the logic behind that, but we're rolling with it. We're rolling with it.
Yeah.
And, I think we had a good draft, so I'm prepared to roll with Telesco at the moment, and yeah,
we'll have another chat in a couple of years' time, maybe.
Yeah.
And obviously, outside the losses on the field, obviously Justin Herbert being injured twice throughout the season, once against the Raiders by having his finger jarred in Max Crosby's helmet, and then obviously later on in the season with a bit more of a serious injury that meant that he couldn't play, which is something that needs to rectify itself coming into the season, which it's not doing, which is not great because he's got plantar fasciitis, I think is how you pronounce it. So he's coming back for week 1. As Jim Harbaugh saying, he's working through something, which seems to be a catchphrase of the off season. But yeah, you're talking about last year. So yeah, no, I'd rather just forget about it, to be honest with you, just sum it up. And aside from the wins that we did get towards the end of the season, such as the ones against the Patriots, a lot of them came against backup QBs. So it was a disaster from start to finish. But we're looking ahead more than anything. Yeah,
no, that's completely fair. I guess the big thing has been the incoming people. There've been a lot of outgoings as well, but maybe talk about the outgoings first. You've lost a large part of that veteran offense. And that was the one thing the Chargers, until last year with Herbert going down, you could really rely on was your ability to score points. And it always seemed to be where you were falling down was the defense and being able to stop the other team scoring points. And that's what was the thing that we looked at the Chargers always going, if they could stop the defense for this year. The defensive line was always, looked pretty good. You had Mack and that, you had another really good year, but it seemed like there was always holes in behind. Last year, with Herbert going down, the offense dried up. So as a result, we've seen this year, Mike Williams is gone. He's off to the Jets. Austin Eckler, who was your kind of utility knife, the guy seemed to be able to do absolutely everything for you on the offense kind of thing. He was a good kind of, outlet valve for Herbert when he needed to be in. He definitely certainly could fly. So he's off to Washington to see what he can do for the Commanders. And then, of course, Keenan Allen. Yep, I get he's getting a little bit older and maybe slightly more injury prone than what he was, as that happens with age. But Keenan Allen, even last year, when he came back from injury, he looked exactly like Keenan Allen always did. But I remember those first few games back where he was still making big plays and his roots looked fantastic and crisp. So he's off to Chicago. So these are all kind of fairly big boots to fill. So, don't know how you're feeling about the outgoings and how you feel about the people coming in to replace them.
I would say probably surprisingly okay with it. I mean, from the outside looking in, it might seem like, like I say, these are big name players, in Keenan Allen in particular, Chargers legend, and someone who'll be sorely missed both, on and off the field. But, as much as what you're saying is right, like all these players that you just named, plus Corey Linsley as well, all great players in their own rights. And, we've lost a couple others as well. But what you got to look at, I think, from a Chargers point of view is this formula didn't work. We were never able to topple the Chiefs at the top of the division. We haven't won the division for many, many years. I think it's one of those things where, they're going in a completely different direction, both in terms of the coaching staff, the style of play, because it just simply didn't work. And as much as, you could say that, and you're exactly right in what you said, it was always, if only we could get an average defense, if only we could have a run game. And we'll talk about that more in a moment, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like this hasn't worked. Injuries always mounted up, and the defense was never good enough, and the special teams sometimes let us down, and health always let us down. So, let's try a different method, which is hopefully what we're trying to do here. And, I think as much as there might not be a lot of star power, especially on the offense, I think a lot of the big names, the big media outlets in the US are ranking the Chargers' skill positions of wide receiver room at very, very low, some as low as 32nd in the league, which might not be too far from the truth. But at the end of the day, like I say, I think we're in a rebuild, and we've got to be really honest about that. I don't expect, and we'll come on to predictions and what we expect from the year again in a moment, but don't expect this to be an amazing year, especially record-wise. But one thing you've got, I think, which is something to be really positive about, is Jim Harbaugh's won everywhere he's been. And he always seems to take a year to kind of, see who's there, see what he can work with, make the roster changes, make the coaching changes. That's what the year is going to be like. So, yeah, as much as, we've lost a few players, we've also brought in quite a lot of exciting players as well, which I feel has some merit as well. But, I think this is a year of foundation. Maybe I've answered a few questions prior to what I got asked them there. But, yeah, I think we've got a roster to turn over, and I think that's exactly what they've done.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because, I'm just looking down your depth chart just now, and, in terms of the people coming in, I agree. I think Harbaugh is probably, outside the playing staff, Harbaugh is the biggest thing that could happen. And I realise he's a big name, and Sean Payton's a big name. We've not seen him do it with the Broncos as of yet, kind of thing. Like, they were maybe trending in a better direction. And as Colin was talking about, it's really down to what happens with Bo Nix and how they're able to move the ball. But Harbaugh, he's came in. They've made some changes. They drafted, I love the Joe Alt pick. I think that's a fantastic one. At right tackle, that's going to help solidify things. The guy's like an absolute baller. Rashawn Slater, I like him as well. I think he's good. Your line should be slightly better. But then the guys that you've got kind of playing, like Joshua Palmer, I don't know if he's really had his due in terms of respect in the league. Like him, Quentin Johnson. You've also brought in DJ Chark Jr., who I know. Maybe not not the. He's getting a little bit older now too, but he had his moments with the Jaguars, and he's a guy that should be a fairly safe set of veteran hands, and he's exactly the kind of guy that Harbaugh likes to bring in, and just have guys he knows that can follow the system and just do what they need to do. But then obviously your draft pick this year, your number one. I don't know if you want to speak about him for a little bit, or your top receiver that you took. Number one, you took Joel earlier, but top receiving player you took.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Lad McConkey from Georgia should come in and be almost like the Keenan Allen style replacement. Like I said, he's not going to live up to Keenan Allen's stature, especially not in year one, especially not the stats that he's kind of built up over the years. But he's going to be that reliable third down target for Justin Herbert. I would go so far to say, I don't think it's a shock to say this either, that he's more athletic than Keenan Allen probably ever was as well. He can probably access the deep part of the field and give us an all-round threat. And like I say, just a safe pair of hands, because that's what Keenan Allen always was, especially on third down. So it gives Justin that safety blanket that he can go to. So no, really exciting to kind of in the kind of in the mode of what I've just been saying about kind of seeing this roster turn over and seeing what we can build towards the future. It's a year to see what these young players can do. You mentioned Quentin Johnson is another one, but yeah, Lad McConkey is looking really good in the preseason. He's looking sharp. Routes are really sharp as well. So he's one to be really, really excited about. One who I think can really build another relationship with Justin Herbert on the field and be that guy who we can link up with, because Justin's been great at that throughout his career. He's linked up with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and they had great chemistry on the field. And if you can build that with one or two other these receivers, including Ladd, then it's only going to make for a successful offense as well, especially when the pressure's taken off him a little bit by the defense being better and the running game being, actually in existence, which it hasn't been for a long time.
Yeah, let's maybe talk a little bit about the running game there, because there's a horrible connection to kind of speak of. So if you want to lead off a bit there about your new running backs, because obviously Eckler, but you brought some guys in from another successful running team.
Absolutely, yeah. So obviously acquired Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, essentially the Ravens running back room from last year and the year before. So yeah, it's going to be again a different style. Austin Eckler was always a great 3-down back, but never one for between the tackles. Always probably a more potent receiver than he was as a runner. Always was challenging the young running backs that the Chargers drafted over the past few years to come and take snaps off him, meant in the best possible way. He wanted someone to be the runner between the tackles so he could concentrate on doing what he does best. The Chargers never really acquired that person. And now, like I say, it's just, again, a complete change of style, complete change of method, I guess, and getting a tried and tested pairing who do complement each other well. And as much as injuries have played a part with both of these players, if using the offensive line as a weapon, as Harbaugh's been saying, and as you mentioned, Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater, few of the interior guys, and in the preseason game with the Rams, I think it was last night or Saturday, I can't remember which day it was. Obviously, it's at weird times for the UK when it's over on the West Coast, and so I always get mixed up with what it is. The blocking was amazing, both in pass blocking and run blocking. There was a lot of big runs made, probably by Kimani Vidal rather than the two blokes I've just mentioned. But if that translates into the regular season, then the running game could be fantastic. And as long as health stays, especially with J.K. Dobbins, who came into the league really high thought of out of Ohio State and had a lot going for him, if he can kind of hit his peak with health on his side, it could turn out to be a massive bargain. And just going back to the acquisitions that we made, that's the kind of mentality that they've had with Joe Ortiz, the new general manager, is brought in a lot of guys, a lot on the cheap, kind of seeing what sticks on short-term deals and seeing who can kind of be the core, who can make up the core of the roster moving forward. And hopefully these two running backs will be a part of that. And like I say, a really potent Greg Roman running game.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good plan. Like, kind of always like going for people who are, try and get guys who are hungry, because if they're coming back from injuries or they maybe get something to prove because it hasn't worked out for them previously. Like, I see you've also picked up, obviously Joe Alt's going to be the guy, right tackle, but your backup is someone who was much maligned after the Raiders took him extremely highly, was Alex Leatherwood. So, David, I don't know if you have anything to say about Mr. Leatherwood, and how obviously Joe Alt's the guy, so they're not expecting Leatherwood to go in and play, but just any thoughts
because we cut him
in Vegas or Oakland if they were still there when they took him.
I think we were still in Oakland. Yeah, we cut him. He's rubbish. Yeah. Surprised he's washed up anywhere.
Yeah, from what I've seen, I'd agree, because he's not looked too great in preseason. I think he's nothing more than a camp body at this stage. I think it worked really well for the Texans, this strategy of kind of throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks, and not all of it will stick. And I don't think Alex Leatherwood will be one that sticks, but the offensive line as a whole, I think this is again what just Joe Ortiz is doing, is he's churning the bottom of the roster, kind of seeing what can stick and raising the tide, I would say, which is not going to be successful with every signing, as we may be proven with Leatherwood, and but it'll work out elsewhere.
Yeah, we tried him in multiple positions as well. We didn't. He wasn't just given a shot and tossed out. Like they worked hard on him for a year and a half, and tried him multiple positions, trying to just see if something clicked with him. It never did.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Bengals with Carmen. We took him, early second round that same year. It was Leatherwood, and we're into year 3 with him now, I think, and he's down to 3rd or 4th string, and we've tried him everywhere across the line, and it's just not working out. So I think it looks like he's probably going to be cut by the end of camp. I guess that's the thing. I always think looking at Owen, as much as you can project, that guy's huge. Yep, he's got explosive power and all that. He stands up pretty well. I do think it's a pretty hard position to get. Some teams do it though, but a lot of the times you see guys because Leatherwood was pretty well thought of in that draft. Yes, the Raiders probably took him earlier than he was expected to go, but everyone had him going, in that late first, maybe more kind of early second to mid-second round, because I remember in mock drafts when I was drafting for the Bengals, I was ending up with him quite a lot, and it wasn't a reach, and we were kind of drafting middle second round. So it's just maybe one of those where we took Carmen instead at that point, and he's also similarly just trended down the entire way. So.
Just a quick one for Lee, because it's a question that's actually come up for Mikey Brown, our Ravens fan that was on the preview. Do you think there's a fear of upsetting Herbert by going to a more kind of run-based offense?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
No problem at all there. I think he'll be happy. I think he also is a little bit like I was kind of thinking this about the connection that may have happened when Sean Payton was being linked with the Chargers job is that Justin Herbert will do what Bo Nix is doing now, and as much as there are different levels of quarterback, he will do what's on the script. He'll do what's told of him, and I think he just wants to win at this point in time. I think he's got a coach that's a winner, proven winner, and if he can have the pressure taken off him, I think he's bright enough to realise that is a good thing, and especially as a guy who has been injured the past couple of years. I think he'll be well on board with this, because he's still going to get to throw it around. Greg Roman's talking. He's not going to run the ball 50 times a game, even though that's kind of what he's known for. He's going to mix it up, and there will be games where the pass will be the much more used option, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess looking at your team though, where are your major worries, and is it still on the defensive side of the ball? That's a leading question.
Yeah, it is. But what I would say is the defensive line looks really good. First and foremost, Tahir Tart has come in the past couple of days to again churn the bottom of the roster, see what they've got. He was really good in Tennessee a couple of years ago. He kind of flamed out of Miami and out of Houston, I think it was. Since, but there's something there. He's not going to be expected to start, but again, throwing mud at the wall. But off the edge, we've got Joey Bosa's back after he's been brought back, the same with Khalil Mack. So you've got your two starting edges. Tua Pelotu had a great rookie season, and then you got Bud Dupree as a fourth edge who would start for a lot of teams. So that as a room itself is looking great. The interior is looking beefy and it'll stop the run, which again will be just a completely different style of football to watch if we can stop the run, which is crazy. After watching Brandon Staley teams for a few years, the linebackers are looking great. Navarro Bowman is now the linebackers coach. Obviously, San Francisco fans will remember him playing for them, and obviously another link up with the past, obviously previous stop for Harbaugh in his coaching trail. The worry is secondary. We'd like to see the real Derwin James come back after a couple of quiet years. The safety depth isn't fantastic, and we really need a CB1 to emerge. But again, it's Christian Fulton. Can he be the guy who kind of resurrects his career in powder blue? Will one of the draft picks kind of step up in terms of Cam Hart, who we got in the fifth round, I think it was trying JT Woods at corner now, who was a third round safety pick for us a couple of years ago. So just kind of trying these things out. Like I say, I don't think expectations are going to be super high this year, which we'll come on to again, like I've mentioned a couple of times. But we've got to see what works. See, this year's the year for experimentation, seeing what works, seeing what's going to stick. As I said before, seeing who's going to be the core guys moving forward. And the secondary is the most worrying. But the defense, I think as well, could shock a few people because, I just, again, going back to the previous regime, I have concerns about the Fangio style defense, especially after watching Brandon Staley defense and it being very, very liable to doing the things that it shouldn't do in terms of giving up explosive plays and just being really easy to play against in some senses. Jesse Minter, the new defensive coordinator, is cut from the same cloth as Mike McDonald, who Ravens fans will be familiar with. He had one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the league last year. Minter took over from him at Michigan. Minter comes over into the NFL with Harbaugh. Same sort of defense, maybe not exactly the same style, but it seems to be the new, the new fashion, the new thing that's in vogue at the moment. And we're going to have that defensive style. We should have the horses to run it as well, which is something that Brandon Staley struggled with early in his tenure as well. He didn't have the horses to run his defense, and seemingly never did. When you're then playing defenses sort of on the cutting edge, on the tip of the spear, then you're going to catch more people out than kind of people realize at the beginning. Who knows? But I think it's looking up more than people know what people think. I think.
No, that sounds that's pretty much where I am with the Chargers as well. I think that's a really good summary. Everything that's going on. Looking at your schedule, What game can you? I kind of think I can guess which game is sort of the biggest one on the lips, or of all the Chargers fans. But what's your biggest game you've got? Or
yeah, there's a couple that really stick out. To be fair, because we've got a 4th place schedule, it's not the most exciting schedule in the world.
Hey, you're playing us. I think.
Well,
so.
To be fair, that is one of the better games, obviously, because we played the whole AFC North. Obviously, the Ravens game on November 26th, the Harbaugh Bowl, that is the one to look forward to. I'm sounding like a closet Ravens fan. The amount of times that I mentioned the Ravens on this little segment, but I'm looking forward to the first game of the season because it's a divisional game. It's at home. It's against the Raiders. Obviously, a big game. And as I mentioned, the Chargers haven't won a game for a long time, it feels. And it feels like that was a damp squib. This is something I kind of came away with from a lot of I say a lot, wasn't a lot of wins, but the wins that we had. I was almost annoyed at the wins because they were, so close or just so poorly executed and kind of felt a bit fluky. When you beat the Patriots 6-0, is it the most satisfying win in the world? No, it's probably not. So if we can get a win week 1 against the Raiders, then it will feel like Chargers football is kind of on the way back, I would say.
No, for sure. And what are your hopes then, I guess, for this year?
So what I've kind of been talking with some Chargers friends, and I think one thing that we all want is to see a defense that can defend and keep the score, the opposition, around or below, if possible, 20 points, because Justin Herbert's record when the opposition is held to that sort of number is unbelievable. And also being able to run the ball and pass protect as well. Because I've been a Chargers fan for a long time now. And, since the days of LaDainian Tomlinson, which is going back to right at the beginning of my fandom, I don't really remember us being able to run the ball very well. And that is a long time.
When it's like dump it off to Eckler and then just like he'll find a way.
We're talking like more traditional running game is what I'd like to see. And, like I said before, the game this weekend really showed that is a potential possible because the run blocking and the tight ends being able to block is another hope that again, because I've not seen that for a long time either.
We didn't even get into that, but like with the tight ends, and that's obviously falls into that Harbaugh. Like he loves his O-line to be good, and the two he's picked up with Disley and obviously Hurst.
Hayden Hurst, yeah.
He is, as much as the guy can receive as well. I loved him even more for his ability to chip in on the line and just know when to stay put and watch for guys that are rushing. I think he does that extremely well. So I could see him really helping you out in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So hopefully Herbert stays, because I enjoy watching Herbert, like all things considered. Came out of that same draft as Joe Burrow, and I like seeing him and Tua doing well, kind of thing too. So I'm a fan of them all. So it's a very good draft for quarterbacks. So I want to see Herbert. Same as I don't want to see Burrow getting injured, I want to see him healthy. I want to see him making plays because the league's a better place when you've got your best players upright.
Absolutely.
Likewise. Hey, so anyway, guys, moving on from that, we've obviously heard what everyone's had to say about all the other teams. What we're going to do is we'll do a quick kind of rush around each team, and we're going to do a thing called Crush It. So this is where we're looking for one player from each of your team who you think is going to absolutely crush it, nail the season. They're going to be your best player this year. Doesn't need to be an obvious name or whatever. So you don't need to say like Justin Herbert, whoever. It can be anybody, or Khalil Mack. It can be anybody from the offensive, defensive side. It could be Dicker, the kicker, as an example. You could be saying, you know what, he's going to nail every single kick, go 100%, and he's going to be the clutch guy that wins all the games. But as an example, but we'll go around here. We'll start with Studs and the Chiefs because he's been quiet for a very long time in our lives. We spoke to you right at the start of the show. It's probably the longest you've had to be silent in history. So I'll allow you back in. Who's going to crush it for the Chiefs this year?
Again, I kind of went similar to when we done this last year. I didn't want to go really, really obvious. I think last year I picked George Karlaftis. It was either my crush it or our breakout candidate, one of the two. So I was going to go Pacheco to kind of continue on his form initially, but then when I was sitting talking earlier on, I was talking about a guy that really needs to step up again in his third season with us in the DBs in the secondary. I'm going to go Trent McDuffie. I think we're going to have to rely on him a lot more this year, and I think he's going to step up and crush it for us in the defence and keep that defence rolling. Nice.
Then your breakout baller. So this is for someone who's a rookie, or maybe Trent McDuffie's been there a few years, so I wouldn't have classed him as part of it, but like someone who's maybe like in their second year with the team.
So I can't pick Pat Mahomes for this one, just to be clear.
Yeah, no breakout baller for Pat Mahomes or for
Nah.
Travis Kelce, even if you think they're going to set new records and heights.
Again, I mentioned earlier on, I try and kind of stay away from the kind of camp hype in the videos. Fourth-round tight end Jared Wiley has been getting a lot of hype off camp. I think he could be a good red zone target for us, probably take some of the heat off of Kelce as well. But one of the ones again, kind of looking at, and I was watching him on Saturday, I think our second-round tackle who's playing left tackle for us is Kingsley, and I hope I don't butcher this, Sua Mataya. He played left tackle for us on Saturday. He was a second-round pick at tackle. I think he's going to have a big responsibility, obviously, protecting Mahomes' blind side. So I think he's going to be a breakout candidate for us. Again, I didn't want to go obvious and go Worthy just because he is a first-round draft pick.
Everybody's talking Worthy, and we'll see if he is worthy or not.
Yeah. So,
okay, so then heading back to David and the Raiders. Who are you thinking? Who's going to be your crush it player on the year?
Yeah, I mean, for this one, the guys that we're expecting to crush it are Davante Adams and Max Crosby, who are the some of the best players in the NFL. Crosby's got so, because he is so intertwined with AP now, and because he's so publicly backed him to be the head coach. He's got to step up, and it was hard to imagine him stepping up more, to be honest.
Yeah.
But,
I'm kind of worried if he was to step up more. I'm actually kind of worried about what that would look like.
Yeah, like I don't know. Will there be any of Allegiant Stadium left? Like he'll just burst through it. There'll be just a crater in the ground or something. So like, can he find another level? To back the guy that he's so publicly called for. I don't know, because he puts so much into it. But the guy that I think who's going to be back is Davante Adams, is just because I think we've got, there's other guys out there now, because he was getting double teamed so much last year because he was the guy, mark him out of the game. But there's other guys this year, like Bowers has come in, Myers has come in, Mayer, tight end, and then the other guy that I wanted to talk out for the breakout guy, Trey Tucker, who's just, he's got speed, which is that on that deep threat. You won't be able to just mark out Adams, because Trey Tucker, who we saw flashes of it at the end of last season, just how fast he is. And he's got the speed to get open, and he's going to be dangerous, basically, and that'll open up space for Davante Adams as well.
Nice. No, I think those are great picks. Like Davante Adams, like as your crush it guy, and then Trey Tucker. Yeah, I do think he could be an absolute kind of breakout, and especially with the other guys drawing the defense, he might be the guy that's getting free. So it's a great pick there.
And he's got speed, and it's not something that we've been blessed with on the Raiders since Henry Ruggs had his.
I was waiting for that.
But he since then we've not had that out and out lightning speed. So it's really I'm quite excited to see like a guy with lightning fast speed. Just to see what he does himself, and also like how it'll open up space for the rest of the guys too.
Nice. Nope, that's great. So Colin, Broncos, who's your crush it and who's your breakout player?
Well, I could probably speak for another hour and a half on Patrick Surtain, who is the best corner in the league, and I think you've seen Davante Adams a couple of years ago kind of was a bit annoyed about the rookie, but all of a sudden this offseason he's talking about him as CB1 in the league. But if you're looking for, he's going to be the highest paid corner, and corners haven't kind of been resetting that it is a market that even when Sneed got traded, people kind of expected that contract to be big. It hasn't been, but I think Sertan is going to change that. But for a little bit under the radar, perhaps, I think keep an eye on Quinn Miners. I think when Quinn entered the league as a D3 guy, he was kind of a novelty act. It was the belly, and people were kind of focused on that, and it was all the kind of rah-rah stuff. He's shown he is exceptional. He's a really quality right guard, and you're seeing all of a sudden guards get paid, and Quinn got paid, but he got paid for a reason. So I think keep an eye on him. And on the defensive side of things, I think Zach Allen has come across from the Cardinals as a little bit circumspect, but I think the edge guys are going to be better this year, and I think that will allow Zach Allen. I think he could have a career year for him in terms of the sacks that he gets. So I think those, in terms of crush it, are the guys I would keep an eye on. And I think in terms of the breakout, I think Jonah Ellis is really going to be something special. He has this ability to get into the backfield, and I think we have seen in the league over the last decade, probably at this point, it's happened in different positions, but rookies, the ability to make an impact, right? It used to be you got to take a little bit of time to transition into the league, and then the wide receivers were probably the first to really hit, and then the QBs, and then all of a sudden it was the cornerbacks, and I think the edge rushers, you've seen guys like Parsons obviously was sensational from day one. I think he could be a guy to really keep an eye on. And as I said, the Nick Benito would be another younger player. I think they're going to push. I think he will end up being the starter ahead of Baron Browning, ahead of Cooper, by probably week 4. And I think he would be my breakout guy to keep an eye on.
Nice. No, good, great choices, Colin, as well. So now moving on to Lee and the Chargers, who you got for your crush it and your breakout player?
So just piggybacking off the conversation that we just had regarding like a lot of offensive line chat, my crush it is going to be Rashawn Slater. We've obviously seen a lot of tackles get paid huge money in the recent weeks and months. Tristan Wirfs, Kristen Darisaw, Penny Sewell not too long ago as well. Rashawn Slater's the next cab off the rank, I think. But I think he's kind of slipped down in the rankings amongst people like us and the big networks as well, because he suffered with a little bit of injury. Obviously, the season before last, he missed pretty much the whole season with a bicep injury, and then was a bit hobbled last season with multiple lower body injuries, but soldiered on through, but wasn't quite his best. As we've kind of talked about, the run game is going to be a huge part of it. Pass blocking is going to be a lot better as well. So he's going to be leading the Chargers, the best defensive lineman on the team. And I think there's going to be a lot of attention drawn to the young duo that's going to be Slater and Joe Alt as well, as Herbert comes back himself a little bit as well after a bit of a down year last year. So yeah, my crush it start is going to be Rashawn Slater to be one of, if not the best offensive players for this team. With, as we said, the wide receiver room lacking a bit of star power.
Nice. Yeah. Who's your breakout player?
And my breakout player, to make it quite offensive heavy, is someone who really does need to break out after being highly drafted, and that's Quentin Johnston. Again, showed flashes in the Rams game that I keep referencing this weekend, but obviously just had a pretty appalling rookie year, just looked way off it, and was really down to a little bit of misuse, wasn't kind of given the opportunity to get the ball in his hand. I look over to Studs, and the way that the Chiefs used Rishi Rice and kind of got the ball in his hands early, that's the way that we need to use Quentin Johnston, not as a Mike Williams style kind of deep kind of jump ball receiver, which is just not his game. And that's just after Mike Williams went down, that was how he was used. So hopefully he can bounce back. We can get the ball in his hands a little bit early, and he can kind of use his speed and run after catchability. Because otherwise, it's going to be kind of a couple of years of not really doing too much. And as Chargers fans, we look at Mike Williams himself, and he didn't have a great rookie year either. I think he only had about 10 catches on his rookie year, and then obviously came back and was a big player for us for many years. So hopefully the same trajectory for Quentin. So yeah, looking for him to break out this year.
No, fantastic. So I guess, yeah, on that note, we'll move on to the predictions we were talking about earlier. So what I'm looking for here is I want everyone's, what they expect their record to be Now they don't need to all make sense in terms of if Studs, you say you're going 17-0, but then we think the Chargers are going to win like all their divisional games this year, then they don't need to match up that. That's literally just what do you think is going to happen. So on that note, start with Studs, 17-0.
You literally stole my thunder. I was going to say 17-0 just to be an absolute obnoxious prick. I would love to see that happen. I think in this day and age, I don't think I'd be shocked to see a team have a perfect season these days. I think for us, best case scenario, I was looking at the schedule. I'm thinking 14-3. Worst case scenario, I think you're looking at 11-6 for us.
Okay, no, that's fair. That's so somewhere in that range. Okay, sounds good.
We'll go with that.
Yeah, no, sounds good to me. So it's actually kind of fairly reasonable, not 17-0, which is obviously what I was expecting. David, Raider Nation, how are they going to do? What's your prediction?
Yeah, I think best case scenario, and it's is about the same as last season. It was 8-9 last year, and I think it's hard to imagine us doing better than last season, even with the bad start. McDaniels was 3-5 when he got fired. So even with the bad start, I there's just something about this Raiders team that it just hangs on Minshew's now the guy. It just hangs on Minshew being able to get in there and get playing and get something clicking. And if he does that, then maybe we manage 8 wins, 9 wins, and you can stay in that playoff conversation. Can go, there's a big fear though it can go the other way.
I was going to say worst case. What are you looking at?
Yeah, it could go like 4 or 5 wins. It could go really bad.
Okay, I'll make you hang I'm going to make you hang your hat on. So I know I didn't do this with Studs there, but I'm going to just average it out and say you get 12 wins.
Yeah, well let's meet in the middle then. I'll go 7 wins.
7 wins for the Raiders. Okay, 7-10. Colin, the Broncos. What you seeing?
I mean, look, I think best case scenario would be if the Broncos had a winning season. The other thing that doesn't get mentioned all that often is the Broncos have set a record as the Super Bowl team to win the Super Bowl with the longest playoff drought. And I mentioned earlier that under Pat Bowlen, the team never had back-to-back losing seasons. Like, you've got to go all the way back to the foundations of the franchise for a run like the Broncos are on at the moment in terms of back-to-back losing seasons. And the team haven't just been bad, they've been boring. So hopefully that changes. I think best case scenario would probably be 9 wins. I think I don't see it. I see some Broncos fans talking about 10, 11 wins. I don't see that. I think if the team went 9-8, that would be sensational. I think realistically, I'm looking at 7 wins. I don't also buy the nonsense that people are talking about a 3-win season. Sean Payton has never had fewer than 7 wins. I think there's no way this team is winning as few as that, but I think 7 and 10 is probably what's realistic.
Nope, that's
Folk are saying the same thing about the Raiders. Like after picking Minshew, like they're folk are not happy about Minshew, and folk are talking about 3-4 wins for the Raiders.
The guy on the golf course yesterday.
Yeah.
Few drinks in, but like.
But like folk are talking like 3-4 wins for the Raiders, and I don't think with the talent we've got, it'll get that bad.
Yeah.
Sure.
Lee, Chargers, how are you feeling with them?
Well, I'm feeling worse now because it feels like the Kansas City Chiefs are going to absolutely walk this division if we're anything to go by, which is not great again. But I'm in a similar boat to David and Colin, to be honest. I think, as I've been saying, I think a 6-win season for us would kind of lay the foundations if it's a kind of 6 wins on an upward swing, not a 6 bitty wins where we're kind of beating backup quarterbacks and things like that. So I'm going to go 6-11 with a lot of positives and a lot of young players showing out, and that'll give us a platform to build and hopefully get up towards what Studs is saying for the Chiefs, for the Chargers over the next couple of years.
That's interesting because a lot of especially out here, like a lot of the bookmakers, like they have the Chargers, like the over-unders like set at 8.5 kind of thing. A lot of people are going
I've noticed it's a little bit higher than what I would.
not that I'm saying they can't get 9 wins. I do, but to me, I look at it and go, there's something. I remember reading like a few years back. There's a study or like an article I read that was on number of wins per season and teams' growth year to year, and how basically I think there's only been for the Chargers to go to 9 wins, like that's a 5-win increase. And I think there's only been like 3 or 4 teams in the history in the Super Bowl era that have went more than 3 wins improvement year over year. And one of them was the Chicago Bears. Like that last year, they went to the Super Bowl and then they turned into a giant pile of poop again. And interestingly enough, the Bears also seem to be in that same boat the Chargers are this year, where the bookies are going, these guys are going to have a great year, kind of thing. And I don't know if it's just inflated market by bettors or not, but the Chargers, I don't think you're going to be down like 4 or 5 wins. Like I think, to me, I'll look at it and go like 7 wins, maybe 8, but 9 just seems I would take the under. Is essentially my point.
Yeah,
with it.
Yeah, I would. I think like you say, I think it's maybe a bit of money being pushed that way, and maybe a bit of the Harbaugh effect, people buying in because he's, like I say, he's a winner. So I do think it's a year early.
Yeah, exactly. A year, like.
I think it's a year away. I think, and you got to see, like, it's a young roster. I mean, there's the Herbert effect, I guess, as well, because if he's back to his best, then you are talking about one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. So that obviously raises the tide beyond, I think, what Colin and David could realistically expect from their quarterbacks with the best will in the world. Sorry. So maybe that's a factor as well. I don't know, but I think it's a wait and see season. It's a foundational building year, I think, and that's kind of what's pushed me down a little bit. Maybe I'm usually a bit more positive in this, but it's a new era.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. I wouldn't say you're being negative. You're just
no,
being realistic, but you're still being positive in terms of the Chargers are going to grow, and I think this letting the older guys off and then rebuilding. There's nothing wrong with a rebuild. The Bengals have done it. Look at us. We're sort of almost there. Will we ever get there? Who knows?
On the plus side, the Raiders, the Broncos, and the Chargers all have to play each other twice. So there's a good few wins in there to spread it out between us.
Yeah, you should why don't you just like go 1-1 each? Like just win your home games against each other, and then just go, you know what, guys, we all made it, and we all finished on 6 wins. Say like beat a few other teams. And
I think we're on like an 8-9 division. I think the Raiders are on like an 8-9 winning streak against the Broncos. So I want to keep that. I want to keep that going.
Colin,
the Chiefs have won like 17 or 16 in a row against us. So that wouldn't be a surprise. I mean, look, as I talked about at the start of the program, being a Broncos fan, it's the highs and lows. I saw us get slapped 55-10 in a Super Bowl. We also gave up 37 points in a quarter in a Super Bowl. So we said, that was record setting. Yeah. I mean, so the Broncos, we are incredible and as I said, we currently hold the record for the longest drought host Super Bowl win. So we're great at setting those sorts of records, but somehow we bounce back from it. But I listen, I think you're talking to 3 people clearly who are beaten down by the Chiefs, but I would have the Chiefs as I would have them as favorites for the Super Bowl again. I had the good fortune to spend a bit of time this summer with Brendan Daly. He of 8 Super Bowl visits and 6 Super Bowl rings, and they are, as he says, they're as locked in as any team he has been around, and he's been around a few teams that win. They are focused on three-peating, but you need a lot of luck as well, but it's very hard to look past them. It really is, unfortunately.
I mean, I guess I'll let we're going to end this here. We're going to wrap this up. So thanks for the chat and everything, guys. But I'm going to allow Studs like the last word here. Do you think this is the best Chiefs team out of the 3 on paper? Out of the 3 Super Bowl teams you've had in the last, obviously you won Super Bowls before that recently too, but of this run of 3, is this the best team? Because I have maybe heard that somewhere recently.
I think it's probably the most balanced we've been. I think you go to the first one, you obviously had all the weapons. You had Hill, you had Kelsey, and Kelsey in his kind of prime. Last year, the defense was certainly playing stronger rolling into the Super Bowl. Rashee Rice kind of kicked on later on, so if he can continue into this year, then obviously you're looking at him taking another step up, and then with the waiting additions of Worthy and Brown in there as well. So I do think it's the most balanced that we've team out of the three previous.
Okay, so there we go. So on that note, I guess in the West we have the Chiefs winning the division yet again. And we'll just say the other teams will tie for second. I think that's the but you're building and you're getting better, and there's hope. Like hope springs in you. Like, and also the other good point is we're now heading into. For me, I'm like, this is primo football time because I live in Canada, so I've got the CFL, and we're down into that second half of the season now. It's now crunch time, with all the teams heading towards playoffs or absolute obscurity again. Then we've got college football. We started going too, so we're now in this phase where it's just going to be constant football all the way through to the Super Bowl. So we need to be delighted about that, guys.
Yeah, it's this hope season still as well, when everybody's got their perfect record, so it's all good.
Yeah, sounds good. But anyway, Colm, thanks for coming on board.
Thanks, been good chatting, and yeah, I mean, look, this time of year is fantastic. I mean, the NFL off season is so long, and it's such a drought, and I think preseason football is fine and it's enjoyable for what it is, but there's nothing like regular season football.
No, again, thanks for coming. Lee, as well, thank you so much for coming on and talking Chargers.
Yes, again, thanks. I'll echo what Colin just said. Really, thanks again for having us on, and great to see you all. And I'm sure we'll cross paths in the future and speak again.
David, again, thanks for coming on. I'm looking forward to hearing more about the Murray Distillers, as well as what's your favourite whiskey? I should ask that right at the start.
Glenn, living in Elgin on Speyside, Glenlivet is my favourite. Yeah, we're coming off a season disqualified from the Premier.
Would you get disqualified? Hold on, that's probably a whole other podcast.
We had to forfeit a weekend for a few reasons. So we were bottom of the Premier anyway. But we got one win in the Premier. Great achievement from the guys to win a game in the Premier Division, because literally playing against Great Britain internationals. So back in Div 1 next year. So we'll be hopefully fighting it out for the division and trying to get back in the promotion playoffs. But yeah, great. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, great to talk Raiders football. The finest franchise in the NFL.
Maybe one of the funnest. I don't know if I would say.
No. But, I do think every other team in the NFL is trash, and supporting the. It just wouldn't be fun without the Raiders.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Studs, obviously, good to have you on board as always. And that ended up being a bit of a hurry for the Chiefs Fest after all, even though that's exactly what I was trying to avoid.
Listen, I'm absolutely delighted if people are going to be bigging up the Chiefs. So I'm just laughing at Keith how long Keith's going to have to look at the time of this pod. He's going to be pulling his hair out.
I mean, we had a lot to talk about. We get rid of the statistic, we get rid of the kickoff question. It's like that. That's what happens. You put me in charge. Sorry, Keith. But anyway, on that note, I guess that's wrapped us up for AFC preview or AFC West preview. I believe we've only got one more to go. It's the NFC West preview, and that'll be coming later this week. And then we've been around all of the divisions, and then we're kind of getting into the crunch time heading towards the season. But until then, as always, the crew will get you through, and we really don't have long to wait. Football is coming, but we're in it now. As I said, this is us hitting the best time of the year where all the leagues are going. So on that note, thanks again, and have a good night or afternoon. If you need.